Hey everyone, I think we're going to get started. So, hello and thank you for joining. I'm Dan Schaefer, Director of Partner Strategy and Enablement here at EditShare. And as always, I am thrilled to welcome you back to another EditShare webinar. This webinar is going to be recorded and will be made available with links sent out in the next day or two. For those of you who've been coming to our webinar series, thank you so much. Welcome back. And thank you for keeping those questions coming. We love these webinar series because we give you the opportunity to interact with our guests and our panelists. And that's just the reason we do them. So keep it up, keep asking those questions. To those of you who are joining for the first time, we're so happy you're here. You're coming to a really cool community where we get to interact with clients and partners and friends through this Zoom webinar. Today we have a special treat. We're going to be joined by two of our friends from the Massachusetts College of Art and Design, Associate Director of Video, Joe Briganti, and graduating student, Ian Dumas, who's wrapping up a Bachelor's of Fine Arts degree studying film and video. And so today we're going to be discussing Ian's experience filming and editing during a pandemic, his thesis, the technical solution used by MassArt for collaborative storage and storytelling, as well as discussing how this represents a paradigm shift for the production and even post-production industries in academia and the professional realms. Finally, Andy's going to show us a quick demo of production in the cloud, which is sort of the logical destination for creators that are on this journey to remote production. As always, we'll wrap with taking some time to answer your questions. And so to that end, please make sure you use those Q&A features. You have the ability to send in questions, but you also have the ability to promote others with that little thumbs up button. So use that to let us know what you want an answer to. I'd like to also remind you that this webinar is best viewed in side-by-side mode and in gallery view, so you can see all of our panelists all together. And you can click and move the slider between any slide content and the panelist video to resize it to your heart's content. So with that, Ian is going to kick things off by giving us a taste of what working remotely really means. Ian?
Hello, everybody. Good morning. I am Ian. Thank you, Dan, for that intro. And
No
yeah,
problem.
I'm in my last year at MassArt here in Massachusetts. And this semester, I'm just kind of finishing editing my senior thesis film. And doing my thesis film during this pandemic that we're all kind of stuck in has definitely been a bit of a whirlwind, to say the least. And it's kind of caused me to adapt a lot. And I've had to compromise on a lot of things, right? Location, crew, and then things like that in turn mean that I have to compromise on my story as well. And that's been not the easiest thing to deal with. But thanks to Joe kind of introducing me to this, the EditShare remote platform and workflow, I really kind of had this magic moment and experience where I was able to not have to compromise on the technical aspects of my film and a lot of things I wanted to do with camera, with editing. And that was kind of like a lifesaver that has really been able to help me make something that, even though I've had to adapt a lot and make a lot of sacrifices, I'm still proud of. So I just kind of want to give you guys a quick little window into what that looks like. So I'm just going to share my screen real quick with y'all. All right, can everybody see that? Great. So this is kind of what it looks like right when I open up EditShare right on the web. And my process is pretty quick. I shot my footage on a Blackmagic 6K. So the footage was really, really high quality and everything. I brought it to school. Joe uploaded it straight to EditShare. And from there I could come in, go to kind of my storage on EditShare, which you can see down here. And right in here, I have access to all of my original files, while also having access to all of the proxy files that automatically kind of upload. And from there, I can actually bring them straight once they load right here, you'll see. What I can do with them in the viewer here is I can actually just watch them while they're in EditShare, kind of see what I like, what I don't like. I can take notes on them. I can actually make notes on them while I'm watching. And that way, when I download them, I can see them in my DaVinci timeline where I edit. And to download, it's pretty simple. You can just click a couple here. Then you press download media, and you can download it straight to your desktop, straight to your hard drive, wherever you're kind of comfortable bringing your media. So after I do that, it comes straight to my desktop, and I can put it in a folder, and I'm kind of ready to go and bring it straight into, like I said, DaVinci Resolve, where I can get straight to editing.
Wonderful. Thanks for sharing that with us, Ian. We're going to see a lot more of Ian's process in a little bit, but first I want to make sure that we introduce our other speakers and give Ian a little more time to introduce himself. So Ian, tell us a little bit more about yourself. What got you into film? How have you been enjoying learning at MassArt?
Yeah, this is my 4th year of art school, but before that, I just grew up always, making small movies, and I've always kind of been involved with music and film and everything growing up. So that's kind of how I got into it. And my experience at MassArt has been pretty great. I'm from Massachusetts. It's in Massachusetts, so I've never been too far from home, which is a nice thing. Home is New Bedford, Mass, where I live. It's about an hour south of Boston. And it's just kind of been a great experience. MassArt was kind of the first time that I was able to be part of like a film community. And one of the coolest things about that was I remember meeting Joe. One of the first times I met him was when he was giving these demos about kind of how the workflow works at school normally, outside of the coronavirus kind of mindset, right? And I think that was kind of a wake-up call to me to understand there's like a very different world than shooting on an SD card, plugging it into an old laptop, and that's how you edit a movie. Joe kind of introduced me to the realm of possibilities with these computer labs at school and the EditShare systems that we have just there, and kind of like the ease and simplicity of working off of a remote system like that, as opposed to just hard drives and the complications that come with that.
Awesome. Yeah, I heard when we were prepping for this, we were talking about the sneaker net and carrying hard drives around. So I'd love to give Joe an opportunity to introduce himself. Joe.
Hello, I'm Joe Briganti. I'm a video artist and video editor, and I'm a video maker. I manage the video area at the Massachusetts College of Art, and which is part of the film and video department. I've been working at MassArt since '89, and I also was a student before that. So I have a pretty well-established kind of presence at the school. And it's been a great experience. The school's great, and the students are wonderful. The students and the faculty are the ones that keep me there, because they're just so great and so passionate about their work.
That's awesome. And I understand you and Andy may have even worked together in the past too. And of course, we worked together on with EFS. But can you tell us a little bit about working with Andy and how you guys met?
Yeah, I met Andy, I guess in the early '90s when I was working at Chettinger. Actually, was a student at MassArt, and I started to work at Chettinger kind of as a post assistant, dubbing tapes. And so I dubbed a lot of Andy's tapes at the time. A lot of tapes of his, yeah. And our relationship sort of kind of panned out from there. And when EditShare was established, we kind of took notice of that and was really eyeing their EFS systems.
Awesome. Well, cool. Thanks for that. And Andy, tell us a little about yourself, and then you can take it away, and we can get to the content.
Sure, I'll just be very brief. I'm Andy Liebman, and I was the founder of EditShare back in 2004. Before that, I spent about 22 years making documentary films for mostly PBS series like Frontline and Nova, and also Discovery Channel. And I started EditShare really to solve my problem, which was how to better collaborate among a group of producers and directors and editors. And it's been a real pleasure growing the company over the years. I'm retired from EditShare right now, but still very involved. And it's really great to see how the company's moving forward. And I'll just mention, it was really great to reconnect with Joe about 10 years ago when Mass College of Art was looking for a central storage system. And we were able to make it work out so that we could donate a system to the college. They were a little strapped for funds at the time, and we love to see creativity thrive. And it was fun to contribute to the program there.
Awesome. So let's talk a little bit then about what collaborative storage was like at MassArt. Maybe not over the last year with the pandemic, but prior to that. We have a little workflow diagram, and I'll let Joe and Andy sort of talk about what this was like.
Yeah, so like before we acquired EditShare, we were storing content on local computers and on portable hard drives that often would fail and not mount. So it was a very cumbersome process. So then about 2010, we acquired the EditShare system that EditShare donated, and that really changed the dynamic of teaching and working, and the post process became much more efficient, and students were able to kind of like work on different computers and different rooms without the need to bring their hard drives in or transferring the footage onto other computers. So it really helped the process and the teaching dramatically.
With having central storage, your students could sit down at any computer, right? You could make the best use of the lab.
Absolutely. So, instead of having to kind of upload, that's what I had to do, is basically every time a faculty member would have to come in to do a presentation or a demo, the media had to be uploaded for them to use it. So now, I could just upload it. That's available on any computer, and now students are able to work. They can start on one computer, go into another room, and begin to finish their projects in like an audio studio. Then we have a color grading suite. They can kind of move around the facility without the need to kind of move bring their hard drives or move their footage.
What are all those pictures here at the bottom of this slide?
Yeah, so we have a couple computer labs. One computer lab is a kind of access lab that students can use. And so they can actually do their finishing work in that room, but they can also do their kind of rough cutting and kind of other processes. We have a teaching lab as well. We have a black box studio that has the capability to do multi-camera, video mapping, VR. So it's a multi-use room. And that room all the rooms are connected. And we also have a color grading suite that students can end up in there. We have a sound studio as well. All these rooms are connected to our central storage system, where, if someone's doing a live shoot inside of the black box, that can be recorded right onto EditShare. Then that can go into an audio studio for more final work, so they can really, students don't have to worry about the storage, and they don't even have to bring their hard drives in.
Right. So of course, all of that changed when the pandemic arrived, right? So, when it wasn't safe to have many students in the same room like they used to. So what happened?
Yeah, so in last year, in March, when the school had to go remote, as the other colleges did as well, we had to set up a pipeline from our EditShare storage system on campus to students working at home. We used a file transfer application that was very slow, and it took days to move and conform projects. So it was very cumbersome and very difficult. So it just was impossible to do.
When you started out, when the pandemic first began, you were trying to transfer original 6K files to students' house?
There were 4K files. We just got the 6K, so Ian's been the one using it. So yes, it was 4K HD files over a very low bandwidth pipeline that was just so impossible to kind of move, and it just was was awful. It was painful, very painful.
So that was at the beginning of the pandemic, and then you know, a light bulb went off, and you really shifted how you were working. Tell us about that.
Yeah, so over the past summer, we purchased a flow server that enabled us to set up a hybrid workflow using flow proxies created automatically.
An EditShare flow server.
Yes, an EditShare flow server, and that allowed us to, that system created these proxies automatically for us. So the raw media would be uploaded onto the EditShare EFS system, storage system. Then the EditShare flow server would create proxies automatically. These proxy files then could be downloaded by EditShare Airflow and edited at home using Resolve, Avid Media Composer, and Flow Story. As with Flow Story, you don't have to download the proxies, right? It's a self-contained application. So EditShare Flow Story is a great way to start the editorial process. So I'm hoping that we start using that, because you could really XML out into these other programs as well, because you could really, because you could use Flow Story to download as well.
So basically, you shifted your workflow from having students have to get the original 4K files, or in Ian's case, the 6K with the new camera, to getting much smaller proxy files to work with. It reduced what had to be transferred. Give me a sense for what's the difference in the size.
Yeah, so so the light proxy files might be kilobytes per file, where the 6K file is multiple gigabytes. You could say, and the data rate of 6K raw file is it's huge. It's, over 1,000, megabytes. It's really up there in size. So that can never be kind of moved over the pipeline. It just doesn't, it won't move. I don't think you can even play it at home. It was just a really, you just can't move those files. You can't even play them back. So having this very lightweight file allowed Ian at home to really kind of like easily kind of edit that. And, the speed of the file moving in the program really made a difference. So
we've had a couple of interesting questions come in. What raw files do you ingest, Joe?
Yeah, so quite a bit. We could do red, which we haven't yet, but we do have students shooting with higher end cameras like Red and Ari as well. But you certainly could do Blackmagic 4K, 6K, yeah, and pretty much all the raw files formats. We've been using the Blackmagic RAW mostly, so that has been working out pretty well. And also like ProRes is, QuickTime, it does quite a bit.
And that's not necessarily a limitation of the solution. It isn't, certainly not a limitation of the solution, but your workflow and sort of the requirements of your network and your solution, kind of have you focusing on that 4K, 6K. There are EditShare clients doing 8K and beyond. The second question that came in here is, how do you solve the issue of uploading to an EditShare system when you can't access the facilities at school? I'm going to assume this means for the high-res original content.
Yeah, that's a good question, because that really was part of like, okay, we're going to have students who are going to not be able to even drop off their hard drives to do that or pick up equipment. So they can actually do this at home. They can upload through Airflow, depending on their bandwidth at home, they can deliver those files up there. And once they're on the EditShare system, those would be, those proxies are created automatically. Awesome. And once they're on the EditShare system, they're kind of waiting, because the idea of this hybrid workflow is that, if students are coming back on campus, the media is waiting for them to kind of conform and color grade and finished, and so they're able to finish on a higher end computer at school.
Awesome.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you for taking us through the workflow. And let's look at making film at a distance. So Ian, talk to us a little bit about what it was like to be filming during a pandemic and editing in this new way, kind of really breaking from your past experience. Go ahead.
For sure, yeah. Everything had to be done so different. I very much am somebody who kind of requires a lot of people around me to have a good time. I don't require that, but I like to be around a lot of people when filming things, because I mean, collaboration is kind of the name of the game when you're making films. The more heads, kind of the better you can make something, and the better ideas. I just love being around people. So shooting and making something during this time has been really tough because shooting is it's almost the smallest part of it, right? Because it's a few days that you shoot with a group of people. So having that be only a handful of people instead of a whole group was definitely tough. But the edit and a lot of the post-production stuff, I think that's maybe tougher for me because I really enjoy being, in the live studios at school where I can be around people. And, even if you're working on different projects, you can always kind of peek in on each other's screens and give each other advice and tips and show people. So losing that was something I was kind of fearing going into the school year, just because that's something that I find very rewarding for myself. So that's been pretty difficult. But if you want, I can kind of also show you my a kind of fuller version of my workflow now, through EditShare. And I'm just going to share my screen real quick with y'all again. So, like I told you guys before, here in EditShare, I bring my footage onto my desktop. And after that, it's pretty simple to bring straight into DaVinci. And what's nice is that the proxy footage is small enough that I can actually work with it. Because my computer, it's not the newest computer on the market. So I struggle with things like 6K footage. I can't even open 6K footage on my laptop to view. So there's no chance that I would ever be able to edit with it. Even 4K footage, if it's raw, like Blackmagic RAW, I can't even view on my laptop. So, the really small sized proxies that I was able to get have been the only way that I've been able to edit at home in any way, shape, or form. And what's nice is that, I can put it right in my timeline. It plays, it might be a little jittery because of Zoom, but on my end, it runs real smooth and all, and it's perfect to edit. And the nice thing is that when I go to school to do my color grade, hopefully next month, it's really easy to just kind of conform and snap in the original footage that's being held at school on the EditShare platform. And it'll just clip right into my timeline, and I don't need to worry about that. So that's kind of like a huge, huge, huge relief there. And then, I can do my edits, do my cuts, everything that I need to on my timeline. And then when I'm ready to export, to show back on EditShare, it doesn't really matter, QuickTime, I can do it so many different ways, but, I typically just do a QuickTime, I export it. I have a couple here on my laptop. And then when I go back into EditShare, you can come down here to upload. And it's really simple to just kind of, export a clip that you're working on in DaVinci or whatever editing software you're using. You could drop it in here. And then I won't actually do it because I'd probably kill my internet service. But it's really simple. Just press continue down here and upload it straight to EditShare. And then once you've done that, you can actually view it once it loads. It's really easy to come in here and just view right in EditShare, and you can send to your friends or whatever and get kind of feedback. And it's just a simple way to upload it back to EditShare to kind of keep collaboration going on that platform, which, is it the same as sitting next to somebody and getting their opinions on it live? It's not the same, but in a lot of ways you're getting the same exact collaboration that you need, and you're getting the same results, and you're getting the same working with people that you kind of require to be able to make your best version of whatever you're working on. So that's been a really nice way to kind of bounce back from losing that in-person connection. You can kind of have it over EditShare.
So you in fact uploaded a file and asked me to take a look at it and give you my comments. So I'm going to share my screen right now and show you, how you can actually collaborate with others. So now here I have the same Airflow client that you were looking at. I'm looking at it in my house, of course, and those cuts you put here in the cuts folder. And I'm looking at a sequence that you just uploaded called basketball sequence. And I'll play a little bit of it.
This is Apollo Control. The third and fourth humans to land on another planetary body.
I thought
Two rather
it's so
exuberant
cool
humans
having the
have completed a lunar touchdown at Site 7.
having the NASA audio over the
Apparently rather
basketball.
close.
It's really great. So I made a bunch of comments, and just to illustrate, and you just tell me. I'm going to go back to a spot that I looked at earlier. It was a spot when you were in the car, and you see there's that blinking light on the dashboard, and so I'm going to make a review and approval comment here, and I think you'll see it. I'm just going to call that blinking light, and I'm just going to make a note saying would be great to put beep music on this. I really thought, I saw that light on the dashboard, so I made my comment, and hopefully you can see my comment now. Did it pop up for you?
Yeah, it pops up live as you're kind of adding it and typing to it.
Right. So we get a chance to collaborate that way. And I just want to, mention the reason I made that comment. I looked at the blinking light on the dashboard and I thought it must mean something, but I couldn't figure out what it meant. And I couldn't figure out, was it a mistake that the light was blinking or not? So I thought it would be kind of good to make something of it and actually have a little sound on it. But anyway, it's really fun to be able to collaborate this way, even though Ian and I can't sit in the same room together and go over this. We can share ideas, and Ian can tell me, get out of here, that's a crazy idea, or he can say, yeah, that's a good idea. But at least we have a chance to work together. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen right now. And Dan, what are we going to do next?
So I want to just take one or two questions, and then we are super fortunate in that Ian has shared a trailer of his thesis project, and we get to show you all here live. So I'm super excited for that. But first, I want to get some of your questions answered. I thought this was a really interesting question. Sam asks, are DaVinci project files also uploaded back to the EditShare server? And I realized I didn't know in the MassArt workflow whether you're using that or not. But the answer in general is yes, it can be used in this way. But Ian and Joe, can you tell us a little bit, how is that part of your workflow?
Yeah, eventually those project files and XMLs will get loaded back up. So when they're on campus, essentially they can just either continue or conform their projects right pretty easily. So it's because the original footage is on EditShare, so things are it's ready to go. So the conforming process is pretty fast and efficient.
Awesome. And then another question from Ken, assuming the proxies are created on ingest, how quickly can you start editing proxy files? So in your experience, Joe, what's that like when Flow is creating proxies?
Yeah, that's a good question. So we have them on a schedule so that the proxy files they could get traced out immediately if we wanted to, but we have a schedule that throughout the day and evening that those proxies get created. I think it's a more efficient way to kind of, because we have many users using EditShare, so we just want to make sure that, if people are aware of the schedule. So if they shot, by the time they got home, most likely those proxies would be, be created. And it all depends on how much footage gets uploaded as well, because, you know, the more you put up there, the longer it'll take.
Yeah, if you're going to put like an entire 2,000 hours of documentary footage in Flow, it will take some time. But if you're putting an hour or two in at a time, it's going to be quick. Yeah.
Yeah, and it does write it pretty fast. I have to say that it, you know, even if you do something in EditShare Flow Story, when you do go to publish, that's, you know, because you could immediately see it in Airflow. So it does do it pretty quickly.
Awesome. Okay, well, I'm going to share Ian's trailer now. We'll take a look at that. Before I do, I just want to point out that there are a few brief sequences of flashing lights. So if you're sensitive to that, you may want to look away. And there's also some awesome NASA footage and audio that Ian uses in his film. So it may sound like something really interesting is going on with your speakers, but I assure you that that is as Ian has intended it. So here we go.
That's amazing. That's just really amazing. But I got to ask you, Ian, what's this film about? How would you describe it?
That's a great question. It's basically it's kind of two things, right? It's, and then on its narrative side, it's kind of a character study of a friendship between two boys in New Bedford, Massachusetts. And it's just something that I want to make. The two main actors in it are two of my best friends for a long time. And we just, you know, we've talked about making it for a while. And on kind of this other hand, I also am very into like these experimental techniques and stuff. And I really just kind of want to make a true hybrid of narrative styles and kind of more experimental styles and combine them into one, I guess. I kind of treat the narrative almost as found footage at points. You know, I rely heavily on this NASA archived audio and footage that I've combed the government archives for hours, kind of searching for the proper moments and everything. But and then, you know, it's just the relationship on screen basically. And it kind of follows the moment that one of the friends realizes that it's kind of time for him to move on and maybe run away. And that's kind of what it's about, I guess.
I really love that, as I said before, the juxtaposition of the NASA sounds with the two friends. You know, it's like they're doing something so adventurous together, yet, you know, and so it's that momentous, I think, a moment in time, right? That significant a moment in time, and I can really see where you're going there. So
yeah, for sure. And you know, I've always just thought, I mean, all my friends growing up, we always loved all these science fiction movies and stuff. And I think part of it is because science fiction is so kind of wild that you can kind of, it almost allows you to give into the metaphor of it all, for whatever you kind of need it to be. So I've always kind of wanted to experiment with pushing how we can use the idea of space in non-science fiction moments, I guess.
Yeah. So Joe, this is a pretty great experience that Ian is having. I mean, what do you think this spells for the future of teaching filmmaking and video making?
I think it's probably the future of this process that we set up over the summer, and now Ian's doing. I think it's going to continue. I don't think we're going to go back. This kind of idea of this kind of remote idea that students can be at home and work instead of having to kind of come into the facility. If Ian lives in New Bedford, the commute's a good couple hours or so just by public transportation, maybe more. So having to have students have to kind of lug in to kind of do their kind of rough cutting, they could sort of be at home doing it and have all the tools and access and the facilities that they would have at school at home. So it's a great thing, and I think it allows us to connect. It provides a pretty equitable computing kind of thing across the board. So allows students, to kind of work with different devices other than the ones that we have at school.
Do you think you're going to stop having students come into school?
I don't think so, because as Ian mentioned before, this kind of collaborative, kind of face-to-face is important for us. But there's going to be students who won't be able to, or for whatever reason, if they're working a lot, they may not be able to come in. So we see this as an opportunity to kind of reach out to more students, maybe internationally as well. So I think this is the pandemic has changed a lot of things. We see people kind of working at home more, and certainly we can bring MassArt to them as well.
And you mentioned internationally. How far have you gone so far? Have you been able to reach out to students in other countries this year?
We have students in India and Africa. So reaching out to those students, because they were living, that's where they live, and now they're back in the U.S. But we had to connect with them, some way and somehow. So this was, certainly, this was one way of doing that.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, I think we need to think through a little about, as we transition towards this remote production as the new normal, where this kind of leads us to. And Andy is here with us today because he helped sort of pioneer this idea around using the cloud. And so Andy, can you maybe talk a little bit about that and then give us a demonstration of how that works?
Yeah. So, the workflow that Ian has been using and Joe's whole program at MassArt has been using is great. We would consider that a good start. But of course, now that everybody is thinking about working remotely, we have to make sure that the workflow is absolutely as smooth as it can possibly be. And also, frankly, there's a lot of interest in not having empty classrooms, empty seats, and maybe beginning to put all of those resources into the cloud, where there's a lot more flexibility. So I'm going to show you what I mean when I'm talking about the cloud, right? So I'll share my screen here, and so literally we're talking about putting all of the files in the cloud and all of the computing resources. as well. So, you could have a very simple computer at home and connect to it remotely. The powerful computer's in the cloud, your content is in the cloud, and you're really just getting a window into what's going on there. And this is kind of where this new normal is moving. And I'll just say that, this isn't something that is maybe going to happen in the future. It's actually happening today. EditShare has a shipping project called EFSV, which is all about virtualization of not only our storage, but the whole flow infrastructure. So I'm just going to show you how this works, right? So here I have a remote desktop client that's called Teradici. It's kind of like if you've ever used TeamViewer or Windows Remote Desktop or something, or VNC. It's just an advanced version of that gives really great performance. And when I log in, I will see a Windows desktop. And this is actually a Windows computer that is running virtually. It's in a virtual machine in the cloud. You can see all this text on the desktop. It tells me I'm in AWS, but it looks like any normal computer. And I've got running here DaVinci Resolve as well. Now, before I get into Resolve, I just want to talk about another part of the magic, right? Yes, I have my window. Sorry about this. Part of what we've done in the cloud is we have, for the newest version of DaVinci, we have it's called an extension or integration, workflow integration here. And so basically this is an EditShare window that's part of DaVinci Resolve. And so just like Ian was doing in Airflow, where he could browse his content, I can do the same thing here. I can play my content. I can play proxy files of my content. I can put markers on the content. I get all of that sort of functionality. But now I want to get to the real magic that's going on here. So last year we developed something, it's patent pending technology called seamless proxy editing. And here's how it works. Right here, I'm showing you the contents of what's called an object storage bucket in AWS. It's called S3 storage. And this is the least expensive storage that you can use in the cloud. And I've uploaded all of my content there. And there's only one problem with that sort of storage, is that it's not natively compatible with nonlinear editing applications such as Resolve and Premiere. They can't use these files. But EditShare makes them look like they're on normal storage. So if I come back here to my Windows Explorer, which I thought I had open, and I browse, I can see all of that media that's in the object storage, even though normally an application wouldn't be able to use it here. So what happens here is when I select clips to import them, my flow integration here actually helps me to import a reference to the high resolution files that are sitting on that object storage and the proxy at the same time. I actually import both clips at the same time and make a linkage between them inside Resolve. And when it comes to the proxy, I can either make a link to it or I can download it, depending on where I'm working and what my connection is. So of course, I've already done that with a number of clips. And you can see I've got this tennis tournament video here that I'd put together. And this is all edited in Resolve with proxy files. And proxy files are great. There are times, though, when proxy files can be a problem for you because sometimes they're not clear enough to know what's going on. Like, for instance, here, I've got this shot, the flags look really fuzzy. And if I could only look at that shot, I may not know whether the shot's any good. But the great thing about our seamless proxy editing is anytime I want, I can go in Resolve up to this playback menu, and I can deselect the use proxy media, which means that now what I see in the timeline is going to be the high resolution. And you'll see that this image instantly got clear. So I go back to the proxy again, it gets fuzzy. It'll get fuzzy in a second. It's fuzzy again, and if I deselect it, it'll instantly get clear again. So this is what we mean by seamless proxy editing. You know, Ian was talking to us about how, you know, he'll go back into school to do his conform, but with seamless proxy editing, you always have access in your timeline to your original high resolution media. The high res may not play back smoothly. It probably won't unless it's really low quality. Like here, it's not going to play back smoothly. But the point is, I can see it whenever I want. I can use it. I can do my color grading right in the same timeline. And when it comes time to rendering my finished timeline, I can also output the high res without having to restore it. It's because it's always there. And I have to say, it's the same workflow, not only with DaVinci Resolve, but also with Adobe Premiere. We also have that same flow window that's part of Premiere. So this workflow saves a ton of money. It means that I can put my original high-res files in the cheaper cloud storage, and that can save me up to 75% on my storage cost, my cloud storage cost. I only have to put the proxies in the more expensive storage, and of course they're very small. And also because I'm doing my real-time editing with proxies, just like Ian was able to use a much older laptop at home, you don't need a very powerful workstation in the cloud. You can go for a very cost-effective virtual machine in the cloud that doesn't cost you a lot of money. And if you want, when it comes time to actually do your color grading and your output, you know, because it's the cloud, it's very easy to suddenly give that workstation a lot more power by just shutting it down and restarting it again as a more powerful machine. That's the beauty of the cloud. But you know, you can really save a lot of money on that workstation as well. So I just want to make one other point, and that is, I've been talking about the seamless proxy editing using a cloud workstation, but actually you don't even need to have the workstation in the cloud. This is, so let me move over here. This is, I'm on my home Mac. I'm a Mac user. And here I'm connected to that same cloud environment over a VPN, a virtual private network. And I have that same media space that has the tennis material mounted. And just like I could in Windows, I see all the clips here. And I have a local version of DaVinci Resolve running on my laptop. And again, I can do very smooth proxy editing on my laptop. Now,
that's brilliant.
In this case, when I imported the media, I downloaded it instead of linking to it. When I was in the cloud workstation, I linked to it and I was playing it directly off of the virtual EditShare EFS server that's in the cloud. Here, I decided to download it. It really depends on your internet connection, whether it's better to download it or to keep streaming it in real time. So, and just like I showed you in the cloud, go right back to the same shot again that was fuzzy, right? I can go back at my home and I can relink again to the high resolution media. It sometimes takes a little while because I'm not there, but there it is. It's nice and clear again. So even though I'm doing this proxy editing at home, I can export my timeline, linking back to the original high resolution files that are sitting in object storage that is not even natively compatible with DaVinci Resolve or Adobe Premiere. This is kind of magic to me. You know, Joe, what do you think about this?
Wow. I mean, uh, there's a lot to think about actually with this, because it really is getting me to think. As you were doing this demo, I was like, wow, the color grading suite that we have could really, wouldn't really need that, because we could do all this from, it looks like it's a end-to-end workflow, without the need of a powerful machine sitting locally. So that there's a lot of possibilities, I think, that that this can provide for schools, I think, who are, maybe struggling with, cost of kind of having to upgrade or refresh their expensive computers. This may be a solution for that. But wow, it's pretty interesting. I have a lot more questions, but it sounds very great. It looks very good.
Yeah. So I, I, I thought this would be a good time for us to have a quick chat, as we get to the end of this session, about how, what sort of implications this has, not only for academia, but also for industry, right? You know, um, what do you think about that? I mean, I know I've got my opinions.
Yeah, well, I think this is certainly, I think, the how the industry is going. I don't see it going back to this older model of like having suites that are expensive, and it allows you to connect to editors anywhere in the world. So I think this is certainly a cost-effective and looks like a even more practical way of working in this kind of new normal.
One of the amazing things is that, I guess, because you are at the forefront of experimenting with these workflows with your students, you're really preparing them for where the industry is going. I mean, they're going to get out of school and this is going to be second nature to them already, right?
Yeah, we hope so. I mean, that's the idea, is that, we foresee this as, something that is gonna be the way of the future, and certainly it is now the future. So it sounds like, it's interesting because I feel like we just kind of got transported 5 years in the future pretty quickly. Companies like EditShare and others are really developing this kind of remote workflows, but also the remote production part of it too, is as IP video is starting to become more of a thing, allowing us to kind of connect, cameras through, Ethernet, and have those cameras anywhere in the school, fed right into our control room. Then that can be recorded and that goes out into the net. So I mean, it's a fast, efficient way of working. So I can't see going back to the old model.
And it's this, it looks like it's the same in industry. Now you're a production company in Boston or New York, you can go hire an editor in Chicago or Singapore, for that matter, or Japan, or wherever you want. And there are no boundaries. That person doesn't have to travel to be there. Of course, it's nice for those screenings to come together. There are times when the face-to-face interaction is really great, but that doesn't have to be the norm.
Yeah, I agree. And also it changes the paradigm of teaching, the pedagogy of teaching as well. Is this kind of flipped classroom approach where, you have lecturing happening outside of the classroom, and people kind of working remotely and come into face-to-face to discuss problems, as opposed to kind of figuring out how to connect hard drives. So I think this is a pretty great way of working, and I'm hoping that it continues, and I hope things kind of keep evolving and growing in this direction.
That's
Dan,
what
we
we'll
want
keep
to take
trying to
some
do.
more questions.
Exactly. Yeah, I wanted to point out a couple things and then give them takeaways, and then we'll go right to the questions. Just as you look at this workflow, right? I think as I was building these graphics, I sort of was realizing that the whole in-person workflow kind of looks very similar to what you see on the screen now. When you add the remote production piece of it, right? You end up having to sort of solve some problems of getting in and out, and that's why the the workflow that Ian's been using looks a little more complex. When we shift into the cloud, again, it just becomes so simple, right? You're using a lower power, a capable machine by all means, but not a workstation class machine to connect to a workstation class machine and do your editing. And you can do all of it remotely, which is just so fantastic with this workflow. So to sort of summarize what we're doing here, why we find this so compelling, we see remote production is here to stay. And what we've shown you today is that Ian, a graduating student, is using Flow and EFS to do his entire thesis mostly remotely. He's going to come in and learn the tools in the college environment, the color grading and the sound and all this stuff. He's going to come in and use those facilities, of course, but in a professional setting, a lot of that could be accomplished remotely. This workflow, as Joe is saying, is going to be the standard going forward, even for the academic environment. It is okay to allow remote work to happen. And that is what we're seeing all over the world in the professional setting as well. Nigel was just saying MasterChef in the UK is doing their editing remotely, which is just a fantastic example of how this is already percolating all over the world. And finally, as Andy showed us, right, cloud-based production is opening up all of these new options for any kind of creator, both in the academic and the professional setting. And that is available today for our customers. So with that, I want to invite you, if you are creating remotely, we can help you craft and modernize, simplify remote production workflows, no matter what sort of phase of a journey into the remote world that you're in. Please reach out to us. I'm going to put a link in the chat momentarily with this form you could fill out to reach out. There's a couple of you who have had great questions that I've invited to reach out. And I'll also put the link to Ian's trailer, which you can view and share if you found it interesting. I think it's just such an awesome showcase of Ian's talent. So that'll all be in the chat. So with that, I want to kick a couple questions over to our experts here. Ivan is asking, is it possible, Andy and Joe, to enable collaborative working features with DaVinci Resolve 17 using EditShare?
I've got some interesting things to say about that. Yeah, so in fact, I've just been experimenting with that myself. So it's certainly possible to use the shared database if all of your nonlinear editing machines are in the cloud. If you're using the VPN like I am, I don't know that I would trust that yet. I'm certainly itching to try it. And so I plan to try it actually later today because I was trying to get that set up yesterday. But DaVinci also has a great new feature where you can just export a timeline now. It's a really small XML type file. And so it's quite easy for you to export timelines and kind of have version control, and other people you're collaborating with can import those timelines into their projects. And so that's certainly another way to collaborate. Let's say everybody were working remotely on their own computer and they were just downloading the proxies. You could still use the cloud as a kind of interchange for those very small timeline files. So I think there are a lot of ways you can work together.
We've had some really good exchange here. I know that we're right at time, and just to be cognizant of our audience's time, I think we have to say bye-bye for now. There are a lot of good questions lingering out in the audience, and my commitment to you in the Q&A is I get a report of all of this. I will be getting answers to each of you with questions still out there. So I want to just wrap by saying thank you so much to each of our presenters today. Joe, Andy, Ian, thank you very much for taking us through that. It's just so awesome to see what a professional Ian is, and I can only imagine that a lot of that has come from the awesome tutelage from MassArt. So I really, really appreciated working with both of you. And of course, it's always an honor to work with Andy, and his mind, just the way he thinks about this stuff is so fantastic. So finally, a thanks to everyone in the audience. You guys, your questions make us happy. They make us want to continue doing these webinars. They are the driving force for all of this. So keep them coming. Thank you. I will get you answers to all those questions. Brianna, Damien, Nigel, John, Jaspreet, and Ken. Thank you. We'll see you all soon.